Sorry about it's taking you till episode 218 to have me on.
We're discovering that we can actually reach out and get people on.
Yeah.
They don't have to be in the room with us. That's a new thing. We're like, ooh.
It just kind of occurred to us recently.
But yeah, for those of you who don't know, this is Chrissie Sensei. She's my senior, she's Bruce's senior, she's everybody's senior. One of the seniorest of seniors in HDKI. We're very happy to have you, Chrissie, and we're going to have a lot of fun. First things first, how are you coping with all this COVID hardship? How are you feeling? How are you going? How is training going through all the COVID stuff?
Personally, I've been coping very well. And for my day job, nothing much has really changed for me. I've been going to work every day, right the way throughout. Then we had Zoom, obviously, and that was exciting to begin with, and then a complete ball ache.
Mm-hmm.
I got a bit zoomed out, as did everybody else. And thankfully, where I'm living in the country, touch wood, at the moment, we are able to continue dojo training. Some people aren't feeling safe enough to come back to the dojo just yet, so I still am doing some Zoom classes and some one-to-ones at my own personal dojo for the people that don't want to come back as a group activity yet.
Yeah, we've just been put back on level 5 over here. So we're back on Zoom, we're back outdoors again and everything. It's just a total head wreck. Pain. Big pain. But yeah, it's good to hear that you've got a bit of normality with the work and stuff like that. That's good. That's better than most.
Of course, I'm very fortunate. I mean, work's been crazy, clearly, because I work with very vulnerable people. But at the same time, I'm very fortunate to be able to go to work still.
So, Chrissie, for the people who don't know you, we want to just dive into your karate history a little bit. So, first things first, where did your karate journey begin?
It began in the English Riviera, which is Torquay to those that don't know. At the very young age of 11 years old. It was a very active dojo. It was in the days when, the early to mid 80s, when dojos were rammed every day and a little bit more lively, dare I say, than they are now. It was a lot scrappier, a lot harder. Most people left the dojo with blood on their doggies. It wasn't unusual, and I think now if you get a little bit of blood on your gi, you go home feeling a bit sorry for yourself. But whereas in those days it was absolutely normal, and back then there were less girls. There's lots of girls and women training now. I was one of very few, and back in the day when I first started competing, because I think I entered my first competition about 3 weeks after I started training, it was against boys. There was no separate category for girls, so I just fought against boys.
You smashed every last one of them, didn't you?
No, literally. I'd literally been training for 3 weeks, and you had to be a yellow belt to enter. So I just got a yellow belt thrown at me for the day. So put that on and go and fight the boys. And the boys would get super angry if the girls hit them, so they were crazy.
I remember, I have a clear vision of my first competition, and I got the shit kicked at me by a girl. Smack the shit out of me. My
first ever competition, I got beaten in the final by a girl.
Yeah? That was first round for me, I believe. Yeah, first round got smashed by I think it was an orange belt, and she was an orange belt as well. I have a distinct vision of an orange belt girl punching me in the face.
And that's why Roth is a raging misogynist.
You've just lost half of your listeners.
I was about to say this particular podcast appeals to me, but what I meant was we do have female listeners. So,
I'm one of them. That's me. I'm one of them.
Chrissie Sensei, but so does Linda down in Cork.
Linda down in Cork.
Shout out to Linda.
Linda.
She was telling us last night she was a fan. Yeah, giving out to us for being so inconsistent, putting out episodes.
I have to say though, had you got to episode 30 and not invited me, I wouldn't have been listening anymore.
You spoke about competition. You were a very successful competitor back in the day. Like what did you tell us? One of your what's your favorite competition story? Because I know you compete a lot. You are very successful. Regale us with your stories. Tell us.
My favourite competitions where I was least successful most of the time was at the Crystal Palace comps. They were always the hardest. They always had the best competitors. And I very rarely, well, it was only several years in that I started going there that I started to come away with trophies. And I have to say that standing on a podium at the Crystal Palace with a trophy meant way more to me than anything else I'd ever won, to be honest, because I was fighting against the likes of Molly Samuels, who I'm sure you'll know about, who was amazing karateka in a day, and somebody who I then started to train alongside when I then started on to train with Tiki Donovan, on the squad with Tiki Donovan, which I have to say, those training sessions were like nothing else. I would have been happy just doing that for the rest of my life. All day, every day, you felt like a proper athlete. And they were incredibly intense. Some of the more memorable competitions are probably all for the wrong reasons. But there used to be something called the VMO, which was in the Midlands every year. It was a charity event. Again, it was incredibly lively. It wasn't unusual for the referees to lose complete control, and the whole teams would be on the tatami. And there was one particular event I was at the VMO when I think it was 1990 that the Marines, the army, came in to settle things down because they just lost completely control. One minute we had the Ninja Turtles on the mat doing a little display, and then there was a complete riot between some Shotokan and some Kempo people. And
amazing.
And it was a girls' fight actually that kicked it all off.
So it sounds like you enjoy a bit of a scrap, Chrissie, sort of like a bit of danger in the dojo.
Not so much like competition kumite now. I think I evolved. When I was obviously competing, I was at my fittest, I was at my peak, I was at my fastest, and I think I had a good chance of always doing well. Because of how much I was training, of course. But these days for me, I've evolved much more into, if you talk about scrapping, for me, that means rolling around the floor and blood and snot everywhere. And that's kind of what I've evolved into and what I enjoy more.
Wow.
And when you start losing at competitions because you're getting older and frailer, you're inside, you're shouting, if the referee wasn't here, I'd kill you. Those sorts of things.
I've witnessed a little bit of that. So me and Chrissie were on a Japan trip together, and we're in Okinawa training with Naga Sensei. Do you remember the second day? Scott asked me if we could do some kata. I said, yeah, sure. He done an hour and a half of kumite, half an hour of kata to the end. We were doing those line drills, and just going up to the top of the line, fight, then changing up to the top fight, change up to the top fight. And I remember Tommy was at the front, and I was standing behind you, and you didn't Tommy was Duke am I ready for whatever karate technique. You just leapt up like that and fucking you were rolling on the ground with him, had him in the headlock. It was like, oh man, that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. That was pissing myself laughing, man. I was like, look at Tommy.
And you know what? I have to say that until we stepped out of that dojo and we finished training, it was only because one of the girls in the changing room said to me, Chrissie, you're a fucking animal. What did you just do to Tommy? That I thought about it and thought, oh yeah, I did do that. But I think what I always say I had to stop doing competition kumite after I worked for the police and the prison service because it ruined it. Because I was now used to just grabbing hold of people and holding them by way of taking control. And when you're doing that day in, day out, and a large proportion of your day is spent on the floor with people because they are leading it that way, my memory pattern now, my brain is telling me that I just have to take control. I have to get that person and take control before it gets out of control. So mostly fear-led, but then that has dragged into dojo with me. I'd feel unable to do kumite now without trying to grab hold of people and take them down to the floor.
Have you ever trained in any Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
No, I haven't. Most of my exploratory, should I say, interest has been in Kyoshi Jitsu, which was all about pressure points and choke outs and stuff like that. I can remember years ago when I first tried Kyoshi Jitsu, it was with Aidan Trimble, actually. He was still working alongside Vince Morris at the time, who went into Kyoshi Jitsu. And we did this seminar at Nottingham University where we paid the students 10 quid a day, basically so that we could choke them out and hit them in the pressure points.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we're just like, well, look what happens to the heart rate when we whack them here, and it go like from 40 beats a minute to 210 or something. So boxing, I was really interested in boxing for a long time. And certainly when I was competing like at international level, when I did my first couple of world championships, I did a lot of boxing training purely to work on speed and the athleticism that the boxers brought. That at the time, I didn't think there's anybody fitter than a boxer. And I felt that when I trained with them. So yeah, for speed, they were great people to train with.
Excellent. I find that interesting. Like, so you're touching on, different martial arts and different disciplines that you've sort of dived into to improve performance and stuff. Like, do you think that there's certain things that karate doesn't have that's essential to look elsewhere for?
Not so much now, and I'll tell you for why. Because we've become much smarter about not only how we train but how we teach people. So I think certainly for you guys, you get the best of it with your morning training. You do all your strengths, your plyometrics, all the speed stuff that's built in. You are having the dream karate experience, I think, from a training point of view. Yeah, from a kind of all-rounded training perspective, I think you guys are covering all bases. The only thing I threw a lot into my own training when I was competing a lot is I did an awful lot of strength training. I trained a lot of weights. And obviously I'm quite slight and small, but not just to get stronger from a physical point of view, but it helped a lot. I was a kata queen in my early days, and it helped a lot for the jumps and stuff like that to be able to take off. Onsu would be a good example. Even getting off the floor now after the mwashis can be a challenge, but to spring up off the floor and look like you're floating is much easier if you're deadlifting 3 times your body weight or squatting 3 times your body weight.
Gosh, cool. I'm sure there's loads more to tell there, but let's shift the focus from your karate history and let's look at what you're doing right this instant in your training. Maybe not just yet to talking about your dojo and maybe the business side of things or classes or your approach as a sensei, but what about your approach as a karateka on the path right now? What are you working on?
Well, I'm getting older, obviously, and I started doing CrossFit recently as a way of building my fitness and again my strength. I've noticed certainly over the last 18 months that my strength has reduced quite significantly. Maybe the average person wouldn't have noticed, but if you're training, you do notice it more. So CrossFit is now an addition to my own karate training. I've always got, I'll show you, in fact, I have a timetable that I follow quite religiously with regards to my personal training, and it looks like that.
Oh, that's full.
That's full.
Yeah, that's full.
Okay, so I run 3 times a week. I try and fit into Bata a couple of times a week. I rotate all of my kata, including the Heian kata. And I've also twice a week in there, I've got theory in as well, because it was very absent from my younger days of training. So I put theory in there and also writing lesson plans and stuff. So yes, it is full. And I don't always achieve it, but I have a goal to do that as much as possible. Wow.
So you've got a very regimented kind of karate life. It's different for us because we don't have to motivate ourselves so much to turn up and train because it's our job.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I'm running alongside my day job and obviously teaching as well, it's quite tough. So I have to be quite scheduled about my whole life. Otherwise, you would not achieve anything. So keeping your
training regimented and scheduled like that, does that help you stay? What else helps you stay motivated?
Passion. It's never gone away. Having a love for what I do. It doesn't kind of leave. It hasn't left me so much. Some occasionally, obviously, COVID has affected me in some ways. You've lost a little bit of spark, but I don't really need. I have an incredible work ethic, and it's been with me from a child. And that's been whether it's been from a professional point of view or whatever I've got my teeth into at the time. I just work hard for the only reason is that you don't get results without it. And that's very clear. When I was much younger and competing and doing really well, it used to irritate me if people told me I was quite natural, because I really wasn't. I was just training harder than everybody else. And every day, every hour I possibly could fit in. So it wasn't a fact. We all know that. Karate is about repetition. It's just about repetition.
No, yeah, I think it's impossible to be a natural at something like karate. And yeah, people are athletic, like gifted with athletic ability, but you still have to train really, really hard.
Easy for you to say.
Man,
you're so flexible. You're so strong.
I stretch every day. Train every day.
Yeah, it's interesting because I do think people can just turn their hand to some stuff. I've been teaching a couple of BJJ people recently, and it's been nice to be flexible enough within my own Shotokan training to give them some stuff they believe in. But having never done karate before, they just fallen straight into it because they can fight.
Yeah, I find it's more like about experience, right? Like when I try any other kind of martial art, anything that's remotely on the same line as karate, it's really easy because karate is so tough. And I think that's the same for everyone. Like a boxer's going to be able to naturally spar just as good as any karate guy with their hands.
No, I completely agree.
And then with teaching, like you were talking about your own path, but teaching, you mentioned a couple of times, you're now teaching on an international level. You were there was a video, I saw a video of you teaching the other day in Sweden. I can't remember when it was, but I was in Martin Krona's dojo.
Yeah, last October.
And how do you find teaching internationally? Is that something that was a goal of yours? When you started teaching, your own dojo, was it going to the invited places, or is it just a happy result of your effort?
It was a goal when I was about 23, so over 20 years ago. But I kind of had not thought that it would come to anything because it hadn't thus far, and then it's happened. I met Martin in Japan, as you know, and we got on incredibly well. We're quite similar in a lot of ways, and because of that connection, I think he just hooked me over. And I have to say that whilst I was incredibly nervous about going, it was my first international seminar to teach at. I loved it, and I loved the people, and it felt quite natural. And then the same when I went to Norway with Simon in the month later in November, it was actually okay. It felt okay.
I always feel like when I go to teaching, if I get invited somewhere, I'm really nervous about it until we all stand a line up and we do that first read. Then I'm like, oh, it's just like a normal class. Like you do this all the time. Like it's fine, and you kind of just fall into your rhythm a little bit. So the more I do it, the less nervous I get. But you came here to teach. Unfortunately, I was away. I think I was either in Barcelona or Macedonia at the time. But I was away doing my own thing. When you and Andrea came to teach, what did you think of the dojo? Was it first time teaching the dojo? How was that experience? I
was super nervous about coming to Dublin to teach in front of Scott. And I can remember, he doesn't know this, but I looked up the line once. I was teaching a drill, and I said to do Kokomi, and I looked up the line and saw what I thought looked like a Kiyagi. I said, we're not doing Kiyagi, we're doing Kokomi. And then I looked back and it was Scott. But
He loves the weekend.
He loves a Kiyagi.
But I didn't know it was him, and then I thought, oh shit, that was Scott Sensei. And he probably didn't even think that I was talking to him, so it was fine. It kind of just went away, and he never would have known about it, and had I not mentioned it now.
Oh man, that's fucking brilliant. But yeah, I remember the first time I was teaching in front of Scott. when I first got the job here, and I was my first time teaching in front of him, and I remember everything that I'd ever learned about karate just went out the window. I was like stumbling, bumbling mess. I didn't know what I was doing, and, and I went up to him afterwards. I was like, man, I was so, like, I've never been more nervous in my life. You know, like competitions, gradings, all that stuff. I was like, teaching in front of him was like, it's its own challenge in itself. You know, never mind teaching a good class. It's a bit nerve-wracking. Now I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, because he takes the piss out of us all the time now.
No matter
So
how good
it doesn't matter what we do.
Yeah, but like I've said to you guys before, it's really good that you do laugh at yourselves, because I think it was never encouraged when I was coming up through the ages through karate, and we were very serious about our karate, and we were very hard on ourselves. And you know, now in my own dojo, I'm just saying, people, just laugh at yourself. If you can't do it, so what? Just keep practicing, because if you don't laugh at yourself, it becomes quite a horrible place to be at times when you're just constantly beating yourself up.
If you don't enjoy training, then why are you doing it? You know, like it's hard enough. It's hard enough without you being hard on yourself. You know.
Yeah.
You need to give yourself a little bit of respite from it.
Well, it's a combination, isn't it? Because you do need to be hard on yourself.
You need to be honest with yourself. I think.
Okay.
Not necessarily hard on yourself, but honest with yourself. You can know when something's shit and when it's good, and then you need to be able to go, oh, that's shit, I need to practice that, and not be like, oh, it's over.
When I first started training with Asano years ago, he would, like, if people weren't doing stuff to his standard, he would just take them down on the floor and stamp on them. You know, that's the sort of punishments you were terrified of not doing it the way he wanted it. There's a lot of messed up karateka out there as a result of that.
Do you think that the style of training, like you were talking about, how, you know, back in the day you'd come away all bloodied up and stuff, and that was like a normal day, do you think that things have changed for the better, or do you wish that things were a little more old school at times?
I think you can have it one way or the other. I don't think you can find an in between, and I say that because we didn't know any different, so we didn't question it. We just got on untrained. And now in the dojo, there are some people that feel able to take a punch and don't mind, and there are other people that will be incredibly upset by it. And how do you judge that in any one dojo? So I think we do incredibly polite karate now. I wonder how that disables them a little bit, in the sense that, are they really ready for an attack? Because maybe we're a little bit more passive than we used to be. If you watch some of the old competitions from the 80s and 90s, it is full on. And Molly Samuels posted something recently, and, you know, people had the old style bandages around their head, patches on their eyes. And if you didn't leave a competition without a patch on, you hadn't done very well. So there's fors and against. You know, the MMA guys maybe, I think, have taken it a little bit too far. I think some of that, there's no skill to it. It's just pure brutality. Sometimes, you know, if you're straddled on somebody and then just smash them in the face, you know, anyone can do that if they get themselves into an advantage position. I don't know. There's fors and against. I think people are different now than they were. Right.
So people being different now, by that, do you mean that there's no place for that kind of training, for that kind of karate training in today's society?
I think there's definitely a place for it. I think the culture's changed. I think we turned up and we were like soldiers. We just did what we were told. We were very ordered. It was incredibly disciplined. There was no fooling around. And I know we still take our karate very seriously, but we do have fun in the dojo. There was none of that, because if you did that, you got hurt. So there wasn't space for it. Maybe somewhere in the middle is a happy place to be.
Wow.
And it depends what people are trying to achieve. You know, if you're trying to compete and win medals and be the best, then you have to have that level of pressure. If you're just rocking up to the dojo because you want to get a little bit fit, you want to feel confident about how you handle yourself on the street if something happened, then that's a whole different scenario. And we all know that we have huge differences in all the people that attend the karate now.
I think that's why, you know, sometimes you have those like specialized sessions. Like I know that, for example, on Saturdays I run a competition class, and that is literally, if you're, you know, motivated to compete and do karate in a very serious way, you come along to that class, that's fine. But every other class, you train hard, you don't train hard, I'm going to produce a class for you either way. Whereas in that competition, they're sort of signing up to be pushed a little bit further, be a little bit harder on them, push them to that sort of breaking point, because I know that's what they're signing up for by showing up to that class, you know?
Yeah.
It helps a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So the Tiki Donovans and even Aiden's later, when I was training with Aiden in the squad sessions, those were really tough sessions. They were non-stop, and you didn't walk for a couple of days afterwards. You know, everything had just died within you. And it's rare that you get to train like that. Obviously the Inaga session, Ross, that was probably as close I've come in years to something like those squad sessions.
It's funny because I remember everyone kind of had a wake up call in that session. Went, oh, okay, this is for real now. I remember like almost everyone came away burst open and ribs were broken and eyes and lips and everything were all gone to pieces and stuff. It was just, and you walked, and everyone, I think when we went round the table to do the best and worst, I think everyone said Onaga session for sure. Like, you know.
But did you guys? So I wasn't in Okinawa. So did you? Shut up. Did you guys do that to each other, or was that Onaga's guys? Like were they fighting?
This guy stepped out. They were like, this guy stepped out.
It was to each other. Yeah, completely to each other.
I think it was just Big Ray. Big Ray Stretch just gave one of those big key eyes. We're like, right, let's go down.
When I think back at that Inaga session, if you could witness flow at work, it was in that room. We were completely, Mushin was present totally. We were just completely in the moment, and we were fighting what felt for our lives, completely focused. And for that reason, it was a very, very beautiful thing for that moment to capture that, because it is, again, it's rare that people are so wound up now that they are just being, they're just present, and their karate is just coming to the front and they are behind it. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But did Onaga Sensei encourage you to get into that mindset? Did he do something, or did he set up the drills in a certain way, or did you guys just go insane?
Do you know what? He was a very scary man, and I think if you'd whacked him with a plank of wood, it would have broken. But I hurt my wrist in that session, and I was aware that I kept grabbing hold of it. And he very discreetly, while we was in the line, he very discreetly just walked along the line and looked over at me and just went like this on his wrist and went like that. He just this little check-in with me, and there was something quite lovely about it, so quite sensitive about it. So that, there was some warmth in there for sure.
I remember just trying to get acknowledgement from him, because we were doing that committee and we're going, and he was giving everyone like feedback or nods and stuff, and I was like, I haven't got a nod yet. I need a nod, and I was trying my best to do something like spectacular, the whole thing, like I need to kick everyone in the head like for the next 5 rounds or so. Eventually I got a little you just wanted to you were willing to push yourself to that limit.
Absolutely. He brought that out in you, and like you say, it's rare that his presence did that, and I got that nod from him too, and I put Tommy in a headlock, so I was quite chuffed. And Simon Bly Sensei said to me afterwards, "You made an Naga Sensei smile. You made an Naga Sensei smile."
So, are there other instructors for you, Chrissie, that bring out the best in you?
It's hard now, because there are so many good people to train with. I think when I was younger and you were training around, there were a few dotted here and there. I mean, clearly, I was fortunate to have trained with Aiden Sensei as much as I did. Dave Hazard, I loved training with him. He kind of maybe developed my interest more in bunkai and the scrappier kind of ways. Terry O'Neill in his own day was really good. He was a terrifying man and had an equally terrifying presence in an Onaga way. His karate can be brutal. But these days, when I look at on the circuit, I'm not going to keep saying it for the saying sake, but I think Scott's one of the best out there. I think he's delivering and evolving all of the time. And what I love one of the things I love about him more than ever is his work ethic. You know, I don't see anybody working as hard as him. And for that alone, I have the greatest of respect. So it's not just about physical ability or presence or who's charging the most or who can charge the most. It is about that really. I really respect the work ethic.
But yeah, so out of all these senses that you've mentioned, you mentioned Molly Sensei, but like do you think that there is a lack of diversity when it comes to instruction? Do you, like, you're teaching internationally now? I don't think there are very many women getting asked to teach internationally at the moment. Why is that? How can it change? Is there a reason for it?
I don't think we put ourselves out there enough. I think that's the first and foremost. And don't get me wrong, it clearly is still very much a male-dominated world. My dream is, I mean, I often get a little bit saddened, and I don't know why, but I do get a bit saddened when I see a host of the whole lineup is male instructors, and I'm like, there should be a woman in there. There should be a woman in there, at least one woman in there. But it's not a gift, you know, it's not something that just gets handed out to you. You've got to put yourself out there. You've got to be prepared to work hard and give it. I've spoken to lots of women over the past, and I don't want it to feel like it's tokenistic. I want it to feel like that person's worked really hard and they have something special to offer, you know, and times are still young. You know, there was a British female boxer called Jane Couch, and she had quite a long boxing career between 94 and 2007, but she didn't get her official boxing license until 1998. You know, that's quite recent in the time. So I think, yeah, karate is perhaps still a little bit behind, but there are all manner of reasons why women might not be out there teaching. You know, we do still have children and families, and that does often take precedence. Maybe it's not that attractive to that many people. You know, it's not that well paid unless you're, you know, up in the maybe top 20. It means having a lot of time away from home. There's all manner of reasons what it must be, but I don't want to believe that it's because there's this barrier between men and women. I don't want to believe that, because I think it's bigger. I mean, of course, I recognise that some female karateka feel that they experience and probably do experience some sexism within dojos and within associations. Of course it happens. It happens all over, but so do men experience discrimination, and so disabled people experience discrimination. You know, everybody experiences discrimination if you're amongst some unpleasant people. But I do think that we're a lot more well-rounded now and a lot more open. And so my next goal is to be that woman in one of those lineups with a whole host of men teaching, just so that I can have that photo up on my wall in my old people's home and just say I did
it. When I see a female instructor doing a female-only class, that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
I'm like, good enough to teach the females, surely they're good enough to teach everyone. Just have them teach rather than, we'll let you teach just the women. Like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't compute.
That's pure sexist.
It just doesn't make sense.
You mean on a course they'd say,
like,
so on a female instructor just to teach women?
So like, oh yeah, so this female instructor is going to do a female only class.
Yeah.
So why not just have that female instructor teach?
Yeah.
I've had invites. I've had invites from dojos to go and teach a female class, and I've turned them down.
For that reason?
Yeah. If I'm coming to teach, I'm coming to teach everybody. You don't just say you're coming but only to teach the women. I'll teach everybody. Thank you very much.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I think it's different, isn't it? Because over there in HDKI UK, you have or GB, I should say, you have a female-only course once a year, or
competition.
It's a competition. You know, I don't want to get hung up on male, female, and all those sorts of things. I get that there are some women, as there will be men and all other types of people, that just don't feel confident in doing that, and maybe they do need just a female only class. You know, I get asked in my local area, do you do ladies only classes? For whatever reason, some people have had experiences that would affect their lives to a level where they don't feel that they can possibly go into that environment, and it might terrify them. There'd be anxiety, there'd be all sorts of stuff. So I get that, and I'm happy to support that. But if it's purely about segregation, then I'm not buying into that whatsoever.
So, Chrissie Sensei, does being a karate black belt make a person an expert in self-defense? Yes or no?
Yes, 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 yes. We can kill everybody.
I don't know. I just, you hear a lot of people saying karate doesn't work. And if you look at somebody, say, doing Kihon, you'd be like, well, yeah, that's never going to work in a fight, And obviously, it's a very nuanced conversation. There's a lot more to say about that. But do you think karate people can handle themselves generally in a scrap?
I think we certainly know how to punch people. And the first thing I would do if somebody entered my space was to punch them.
Okay.
To prevent them coming any closer. So yeah, we can handle ourselves. What do we mean by self-defense? Because historically, my experience of self-defense classes is people get taught locks and holds and grabs and headlocks. Well, if somebody's coming to attack me, I don't want to put them in a headlock. I don't want to keep them closer to me any longer than I need to. I want to get them, I want to hit them, I want to get away. That's the best form of defense, surely. And I don't think you can teach people locks, holds and grabs and headlocks in a couple of hours here and there. It's a lifetime execution of work. I think I'm probably fare better than most because I've done lots of control and restraint work with the police and the prison service. So I know how to do all of that stuff, and it's quite instinctive. And it has to be instinctive. It has to be a reaction. It can't be something you have to think about. So yeah, the best form of defense I think any karateka is to just stick one on them and run off. We don't want to be involved in a long-term fight. That's what we do for the dojo. And in any situation, these days, people are carrying knives and guns and God knows what else. So you don't want them close to you. The closer you are, the more likely to get a blade stuck in you. So yeah, I did used to teach self-defense years ago. I used to get asked to do it a lot, and I used to go around to boarding schools and stuff like that. It was part of their curriculum. And we did do a lot of what was expected to be taught. But certainly another thing that I learned more than anything in the prison service was one of my best weapons was my voice. You talk your way out of anything. It really is the best thing to use in the first instance. But you know what, our ancestors gave us instinct for a reason, and we all get switched on quite quickly. We've all walked past that person in the street that's made our stomach twitch a little bit, and we don't know for what reason. And we just have to rely on those to be more mindful. And that's nothing to do with karate. That's all completely to do with instinct. It's in our DNA.
Excellent. Very much. I think it's time.
It's that time, Chrissie. You know what time it is?
Fail!
You love a fail of the week.
I love a fail. My fail is clearly exposing myself to critiquing Scott Sensei in the lineup.
I will not forget that.
That's
one.
a good fail.
Oh my god, that is the.
Man, if that happened to me, I'd want to crawl into a hole and die.
I'm wanting to. Look, I'm starting to go now.
Are you gonna fail?
Yeah.
What's your fail?
So I have been arguing with Scott Sensei all week about Hurricane and Tetsuri, and just winding him up a bit. So I was telling him that Hurricane's a waste of time. Much rather just hammer for someone in the face than that. Just as a bit of fun. Kind of playing about with the idea of why would you do this as opposed to this? Doesn't make sense to me. But anyway.
Have you any thoughts on that? Have you ever Hurricane?
Not out of that. I used to use it a lot in competition because obviously I'm quite short. So I used to do this thing where I jumped up in the air and went over the top of the Huracan. I think I think you have to be careful. It's just like the top of our foot, the back of our hand, isn't it? We got those soft bones and stuff. So I do think that Bruce Lee whip on the end is super important to ensure that you get the knuckles connecting and not the back of the hand. It's pointless hitting somebody with the flat of the back of your hand. That's quite dangerous, I think. And you probably mash it up a little bit.
Right.
But Tetsuri, for me, Tetsuri feels a bit like hitting somebody with a marshmallow because it feels a bit soft. But it depends where I was hitting them, of course. If I was hitting them in the groin, then it'd feel like a sledgehammer. So,
just gotta keep practicing. But I was arguing. My feeling is I was arguing with Scott about this and winding him up. And then he decided to do sparring. Like we were going to start morning training off with sparring, and he came in very aggressive to try and like a big lunging hurricane to prove a point. And we got in an exchange, and I got a good wee dig, boom, right in the guts, boom, and he was like, and he started coming at me the way he does, that sort of tiger blood DNA, like, and he grabbed me, and I went, oh, he's going to do something, and I pulled my elbows in so he didn't like kick my elbows or something, and he ends up kneeing me square on the elbow, and he's crippled. He's crippled. I'm putting him out of commission, like he's done. He's crippled. And I've been suffering ever since. He's always
taking it out on me
and smacking me. So yeah, I've been suffering a little bit because of that. So my feelings are just going to arguing with Scott. We're just poking the bear, really. That's my feeling.
Okay, mine's very similar. I when we were sparring in that same session, I kicked our intern. And I cut his hand open. Poor David Pope Sensei has had his hand wrapped up for half the week because my toenails kind of slashed his hand open. I feel quite bad. The internship is supposed to be a little bit like that, but not when you're an 8th dan and you're in your 60s, you know. And he's not here for the same reasons all our other interns have traveled here. So I feel a bit stupid for having
get too violent.
For having not cut your toenails.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, the toenails are correct.
Do you know, going back to years ago, we used to have a toenail and fingernail inspection before training.
Ooh. Well, I keep my fingernails long on this hand for guitar playing.
Your guitar, of course.
Yeah. I just have to try not to cut people with them. Okay, Chrissie Sensei, we have to go.
We have other appointments, but is there anything you want to give a shout out to? Anything you want to touch on just before we leave? Now that you've got the biggest platform in the HDKI, you know, this podcast.
Yeah, it's about time, really, to be honest. I'm not going to keep mentioning it. No, I'm kidding. No, just thank you guys for having me on. It's been great to speak to you this afternoon, and I hope that I get over there to see you as and when COVID, dare I say it, allows.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been a great chat. We will definitely do it again because I feel like we've just skimmed the surface of Chrissie's karate story. There's a lot
you have,
more,
for sure.
A lot more in there, so for sure we'll get you back on sooner rather than later. But we very much appreciate your time, Chrissie. We're very thankful, very grateful. And hopefully we'll see you soon.
Right back at you guys. Thank you very much. Nice to see you. Take care.
Os. Bye. Thank you.